Over the next 5 weeks, we'll be reading from John chapter 6. We do this every 3 years. We leave Mark behind for about 5 weeks and transfer over to John 6. And why is that? The church, in its infinite wisdom, wants us to take this opportunity to preach and to learn more about the Eucharist. So the next 5 weeks, we'll be really focusing on this passage. And it's beautiful that we have this opportunity. And why is that? Because we know that the Eucharist is what? Well, the Catechism of the Catholic Church says in paragraph 1324, the Eucharist is the source and summit of the Christian life. Notice how it doesn't say Catholic life. Source and summit of the Christian life. And doing research for this homily, I actually kind of came across a quote, and I'm not going to share it with you, but from Martin Luther. Even Martin Luther, the one who started the Reformation for the most part, believed in the real presence of the Eucharist. Paragraph 1324, I just want to read it for you. Paragraph 1324. The Eucharist is a source and summit of the Christian life. The other sacraments, and indeed all ecclesiastical ministries and works of the apostolate, are bound up with the Eucharist and are oriented toward it. For in the blessed Eucharist is contained the whole spiritual good of the church, namely Christ ourself, our Pasch. Did you catch that last sentence? For in the blessed sacrament is contained the whole spiritual good of the church, namely Christ himself, our Pasch. We as Catholics, we as Christians, we should be saying this, but we as Catholics truly believe in the real presence of Jesus Christ and the most holy sacrament of the Eucharist. This is a central belief for us. But we can be honest about this. This can be hard to understand. It can be hard to comprehend. I believe it was St. John Vianney who said, if we truly understood the fullness of the Eucharist, our heart would explode with love to the point that it actually kill us. And we know that's the truth because, well, the Eucharist is God. God himself is a mystery. But that does not mean he does not want to reveal himself to us. Instead, he invites us into relationship with us, and invites us into communion with him, through him, and in him. And he gives the gift of himself to us so that we may share in his divinity. He who is the food of heaven, food for the journey. We're going to hear all about this in John chapter 6. And so I encourage you over the next 5 weeks, spend the time every single week just reading through John 6. It doesn't take that long. This actually is an assignment that I gave to some of our summer OCIA program. What is OCIA? It's the old term for RCIA, so Order of Christian Initiation for Adults. We have a 6 kind of session OCIA program in the summer. It's been beautiful. We're 4 sessions in. It's about 10 people going through it, those who are already baptized Christian, those who are really interested in the Catholic faith. But a couple weeks ago, I gave them the assignment, okay, this week, go read John chapter 6. We come to the class the next week, and I'm the teacher. I'm like, okay, what did you get out of John chapter 6? And I learned a lesson. I'm not a teacher. Father Eric, good luck at Holy Family, by the way. Because I asked, what did you get out of John chapter 6? But I realized I didn't do the homework. See, I thought I knew all of John chapter 6, but the first thing someone said to me was, Father, I really like the part in John 6 where Jesus is walking on water and the storm calms down, they cross to the other side. And I was like, that's not in John chapter 6. It is. It's in there. So make sure as a teacher do your homework as well, right? But because when I come to John 6, I just jump right to I always think about the Eucharist. I don't think about Jesus walking on water. So I always go to like John 6, 51 to 58. I am the bread of life. Whoever eats of my flesh will live forever. We're going to get there in a couple weeks, by the way, reading that passage. But another candidate for OCIA was really drawn to the story of the feeding of the 5,000. And what he was drawn to it, by the way, was near the end of today's gospel. That after Jesus miraculously feeds the 5,000 men, not including the women and the children, that not only is there leftovers, 12 wicker baskets full, but what he was drawn to that was that they didn't discard the leftover bread. They didn't let it go to waste. I'm thinking at first, okay, he's a conscious person. He's wanting to make sure everyone gets fed. He goes, no, Father, the reason that drew me into it, because as a Protestant, my church that he goes to, he said, believes that Jesus is present in the communion, but only during the service. Though when the service is over, the host no longer remains Jesus Christ. But for Catholics, he said, what's really drawing me in is that after the Mass and after we have consumed the Eucharist, that you guys put the Eucharist in the tabernacle, that God remains with us. How beautiful that is. So for him, when he read this gospel passage, that's what he came together. Like, this Catholic faith makes even more sense. Because how can God cease to be? Instead, we know that God, what we want to believe, and hopefully we do, that God is in the tabernacle. And that's why every single time we come into a Catholic church that has the red votive candle right next to the tabernacle, what do? We genuflect. Why do we genuflect? Because we're genuflecting in front of God. That God gives the gift of himself to us and that he is present in this world. Yes, through the gift of the Holy Spirit, we know that. But he's truly present in the Eucharist. And that we have the opportunity to come and receive him at Mass. That he's able to come into our body to transform us. How beautiful that is. That truly is a gift. But we also have the gift as well that we can come and adore him. We can go and spend time with God, knowing that he's truly present in the tabernacle, knowing that he's truly present in the adoration chapel. Think about that. We can go stand face to face or kneel or sit face to face with God. And when that happens, what happens in us? It transforms us. It makes us holy. It reminds me of Exodus chapter 34. Moses coming down from the 10 Commandments, and all of a sudden his face is what? His face is so radiant that the Israelites are afraid of him because they could tell that God had spoken to him. So he had to cover his face. Hopefully when you spend time in adoration, people are not afraid of you, by the way. But I guarantee one thing, they're going to notice a difference. Because in adoration and in prayer, what's happening? We're being transformed. We're going in union with God. It's Blessed Carlos Acutis, by the way, that's a quick story about Blessed Carlos Acutis. He was born in 1991 in Great Britain. His family moved to Italy. And unfortunately, and also fortunately as well, Blessed Carlos Acutis passed away in 2006 at the age of 15. He's kind of known as the millennial saint, hopefully soon to be canonized, by the way. But Carlos was like most teenagers. He loved video games. He loved computers. It's kind of one thing in that generation, right? Even grown men still play their computer games, whatever. All right, that's fine. But for Carlos, he realized there must be something more. And he also had a great devotion to the Eucharist. He actually helped his parents come back more fully into the Catholic faith after he received First Communion. So Carlos also helped teach faith formation classes in his local parish. And he wanted to teach these students that he was teaching about Eucharistic miracles. So he said, okay, I can put them together on these poster boards, but what if I put them on a website? And so we learned code just so we could start a website talking about the world's Eucharistic miracles. That website is still running today. How beautiful that is. But Blessed Carlos often would go to church and he'd want to spend time in adoration and time in prayer. And this is one of his quotes that someone shared with me recently. It really struck me as well. He used this image. When we face the sun, we get a tan. We know that, right? When we face the sun, we get a tan. But when we stand before Jesus in the Eucharist, we become saints. Do you want to become a saint? If the answer is no, by the way, we got to talk. All right? But do you want to become a saint? Go spend time in adoration. Another quote from Blessed Carlos. By standing before the Eucharistic Christ, we become holy. By standing before the Eucharistic Christ, we become holy. Now, it wasn't just the OCIA candidates, by the way, who got homework from me this past year. Do you remember the beginning of the year? I challenged all of the parishioners, can you please spend 15 minutes a month in adoration? And it's been beautiful to see new parishioners walking down the hallway, Adoration Chapel is right back there, and going to experience adoration. It's been a beautiful gift as the pastor. Maybe you haven't completed that homework yet. Maybe you haven't done it yet this year. You could still do it this month. July's not over. Can we spend time, 15 minutes this month? That's all I'm asking. That's all the Lord is asking. Probably more, though, from him. And adoration. Why? Because the Eucharist is the source and summit of our life. That we can go spend time with God. Maybe you're not Catholic yet. Maybe you're thinking about it. Go spend time in adoration. You too can go and adore the Lord and let the Lord transform you by going to the source and summit of the Christian life. And a God who longs to be in communion with us, to be in communion with you.